we tried a webinar, but we don't think it works for the business.
For the cake business, you don't think the webinar works for the cake business? Okay, so how would you run a webinar for a cake business? Okay, so the first thing to remember is a webinar is a medium for people to know, like, and trust you more over them being immersed with you and what you have to offer for a longer period of time. So say old school, well, not necessarily old school, but yeah, old school would always say around 90 minutes, possibly more. In the current era that we're in right now, I feel like you should kind of play between a long form webinar and a short form webinar, or a mini webinar, which I learned those from Joel Irway, whereas Jason Fladleen, he's more on the longer form webinar sort of thing. Now, if you were to do it for a cake business, here's how I would do it. Again, remember, the main focus is for them to know you, like you, and trust you more, and to know that you actually have the transformation that they want. So you have the solution and you have the transformation. That's basically it. I would have whatever recipes that I make, I would have those created as content on my Instagram page, on my TikTok, on my YouTube. So it'd be something like bake this cake with me. So whatever it is, bake velvet cake with me today. Boom, 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 boom. We get it done. Then what I would then do is I would have a webinar which says, hey, if you want to do a baking class with me for, I don't know, say an hour, we're gonna bake XYZ cake. I would do that as the webinar, right? So people can, first of all, buy your recipes online. That's one thing. So they can buy the recipe and then come into the webinar and then do the cake in class with you there, right? But then also you have people who want wedding cakes and all that sort of stuff. So what I would do, and this is you thinking about it all the way from the end to the beginning, reverse engineering. If your main focus is wedding cakes and high clientele wedding cakes, I would look at different weddings. I'd look at Kim K's wedding. I'd look at B's wedding, Beyonce's wedding. I'd look at all the celebrities that are really elite, all A-list, see what types of cakes they had. And on my webinars, I would recreate those cakes or something similar. Or if I was to make this cake, here's how I would do it, right? I'd probably get about, let me see, I'll probably get 6 of those cakes, right? 6 between 12 of those cakes. And I would do if I was making the Kim K cake, here's how I would do it. If I was making the Beyonce cake, here's how I would do it. If I was making the Charlize Theron cake, if I was making the Halle Berry cake, here's how I would do it, right? And I would have those as the actual webinar, but I would have little snippets of easier or not as complicated cakes to make on my Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, right? Twitter as well, depending, but you don't have to do all of them. I'm just naming those because those are the platforms which are currently popping right now. But definitely, if I was to pick, I would say Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, definitely, right? Add in LinkedIn as well, actually. So it would be recipes for people to buy. So those would be on my Instagram with a link in bio for them to go buy the recipes. I would then have the bake with me, which would be the webinar. So we could probably do twice a month. So every first Friday, every last Friday of the month, we could have bake with me. Then I would have on those, and then in those bake with me's, again, you have to decide how difficult baking the cake is going to be. So say, for instance, you are doing the Kim K cake, it's up to you to kind of decide how difficult is this going to be, or the Beyonce cake. I've not seen them, but I'm just using those as examples. Then if you can do it within an hour, or if it's something that maybe will be 2 hours, possibly, that's basically what I would do. ideally, I feel like something that you can do between 30 to 45 minutes would probably be the most ideal and most impactful. So if maybe not necessarily doing the Kim K cake, maybe actually doing a Kim K cake would be what I would do. So actually make Kim K as a cake, right? Or like you see all these other cool ones, like people make trainers like sneakers, Jordan 1 sneakers, or people making stuff that you think is an actual object, but it's actually a cake, like a bag, but it looks so realistic, they make it into a bag. Again, this depends on the level of skills that you have, so you kind of have to decide based on your level of skill. But that's how I would do it. I would have link in my bio to buy my recipes, link in my bio to sign up for the Bake With Me. Then I would also have also another link in my bio. Well, the link in my bio will give you these options: buy my recipes, buy my cake recipes, sign up for Cook With Me every last Friday and first Friday of the month, and consultation. So I'd have one for book me for a consultation for your wedding cake or whatever cake it is you're trying to do. Again, I'm using this example specifically for if you're a wedding baker, a wedding cake baker, and that's your main clientele. But showcasing your skills in all these little ways, it's how you would attract that main clientele, right? So you have that, people can buy the recipes, people can click link to watch you bake the cakes, and then people can actually book you for the call. Now, what I would also do at the end of the webinar, I would have a Q&A, and if people have further questions or if people want to book you, oh, can you please just do this for us? I would have that as a link in the whether you're doing it on Zoom, probably Zoom would be best. Have a link where people can literally just click, and it takes them again to that book a call where they can enter details, book a call with you. The one important thing with these sort of, because it's a funnel, the one important thing with these sort of funnels is you want to have some sort of gate in between the person speaking to you and the person. What I mean by that is this: you want them to qualify themselves. So you don't just want everyone just, oh yeah, can you just do this for me? Boom. But then they're not the type of people who can even afford. So let's say the cake is $6,000. They're not the type of person who can afford that cake. So instead, have some sort of form which they have to fill out. And if they qualify based off of that, that's when the call comes in, when they book the call, you can see that, okay, yeah, they are qualified for the call. Obviously, if people put in rubbish information, they weren't serious right from the get-go. People who are serious are the people who will fill it out properly with a higher intent of actually getting you to do it for them, right? So that's kind of how I would do it. So remember, the webinar is not for you to be like, oh, everything that you know. No, use it to just showcase that you can help people get the transformation that they want, and then show them how to do it. Obviously, this is using a cake example, so it's very nuanced and particular to this, but the system is kind of the same, or the ethos? No, the principles are kind of the same, whether you're selling your, I don't know, your legal services, or you're selling your chiropractor services, or your architecture services, or whatever it is, right? The process and the principles remain the same. So that's how I would do it if I was doing a baker or a cake business, or baking or using my cake business with webinars to generate more traffic and more qualified leads, and making sure that those leads are warmed up. A challenge is also another version which you can do, but I think that if we're going to a challenge, that should be a whole different sort of framework and a whole different scenario. But the thing I want you to remember is this: webinars, almost everything is a webinar, because anything which is basically to tell that person that you are the authority on this particular topic or this service, or you are the go-to person, is essentially a webinar. So even if it's a short form video or whatever, it is essentially a webinar because it's doing the same purpose. It's just, it's a short form video, maybe 30 seconds, right? But essentially everything is really a webinar, essentially. The process of you making it 30 minutes or 15 minutes, that just depends on what it is you're trying to do. But that process still remains the same. So hope that was helpful.